Hey, Dr. Stone here. I just wanted to share some of what's behind the philosophy of our clinic using the 5 elements Eastern philosophy. I call this the living guide to energy flow. If you're not familiar with the elements, they are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, and you can see that they are associated with the seasons, and we have seasons of our life. We also have out here is the creation cycle, and inside is the control cycle, and they go across this way. So this sort of inhibits, fire inhibits metal, wood creates fire, and here's the quick overview of how that works. So earth creates metal by hardening. So you think of the rock tables in the earth, and the precious metals, the diamonds that are created from the pressures of the earth and the soil. Metal creates water by containment. You think of the rock tables and the water that we tap into. Water creates wood by nourishment. Wood creates fire by burning. Think of the trees and how, even in nature, forest fires, and then fire creates earth through the ashes. And if you think of a forest fire, what grows next is the little bushes, and you might get some nice blueberry bushes and things like that. Now if we go on the control cycle, fire controls metal by melting it. Metal controls wood by cutting it. And you can think more traditionally, we have axes and things like that now, or chainsaws even, which is all metal. But more traditional cultures use sharpened rocks. Wood controls earth by covering. So even you look out in your yard, and the little sprouts of grass are part of that wood element. And if you have no grass, no trees, earth just floats away, blows away in the wind. Earth controls water by damming. Just think of the sides of the riverbeds and sides of the lakes and things like that. And water controls fire by extinguishing it. And so we can use the symbolism of all these things when we apply it to our internal organs, and how it controls and creates and nourishes and inhibits and that kind of thing. It's really quite interesting. And really, if you look at what traditional medicine, Western medicine, is all about, it's taking all these things apart. If we go on to the organ systems that are associated, we see small intestine, heart, also triple heater and circulation sex, which are not easily transferable into organs, but the triple heater is going to be things like your thyroid and adrenals, and maybe your thymus gland, your immune system. Circulation sex will be, maybe partly the adrenals again, their steroid hormone functions, and the primary sex organs, gonads, that fit into there. Earth is your stomach, spleen, and pancreas. Metal is large intestine, lung, and we'll talk about the symbolism of those things. Large intestine, lung, what do? They expel. Bladder and kidney, they control water flow. Fluid inside the cell, fluid in your ankles, we have a water element issue. Wood is your gallbladder and liver, and a lot of this function has to do with the structure of our cells. Every cell is lined with 2 layers of fat. And so what does the gallbladder do in the liver? It absorbs fat, it makes cholesterol, things like that. So those are the organ associations. And we can see here, we can summarize it into fire is that cell growth. If we think of summer, the flowers blooming, the plants growing. And then earth element, we think of the harvest time. So what is the harvest? Might be a broccoli inside the cell. It's the ATP, or energy. And metal has to do with cell elimination. We talked about that, the waste being blown off or eliminated. And water is cell fluid balance, and wood is the cell cleansing, also liver has a lot to do with the cleansing and the cell structure, and it just cycles around. This is how these cells stay healthy too. We can see the stressors that, these would be more like the body stressors, the physiological stressors, what's going on, and we always have a stress stressor, meaning the stress physiology, and then an inflammation. Insulin is very inflammatory, so we have sugar, and if you eat lots of donuts, it's a major stress on your body. And when we're looking at sugar here, it's not just sugar intake, but it's your blood sugar regulation. And of course the response to that is insulin, which is very inflammatory. The metal stressors, caffeine, we look at that as overwhelm. And there is a chemical which people aren't as familiar, so I use caffeine as the more common language, but it's actually cyclic AMP is the chemical inside of our body. When we have a cup of coffee, it releases cyclic AMP, and that amplifies adrenaline, insulin, and kind of equates to the life effect of just feeling overwhelmed. And then cytokines are the immune communication. So when there's a bacteria, certain cells will release immune cytokines that are very inflammatory to call that other immune cells into that area. With the water element, we have noradrenaline, which we might look at in the overview of life as worry. And prostaglandins and leukotrienes, these are inflammatory chemicals that, just to make it easy, that's why we take aspirin and Advil. If we take that, is because we have inflammatory prostaglandins that are the result of tissue injury, but can also be from insulin. The wood stressor is cortisol, and that is the primary adrenal hormone. Its primary function being to regulate blood sugar control, get the feedback here, loops. And then autoimmune, which is a normal process that when somebody has an autoimmune condition is accelerated, it's too high. But we always have cellular cleanup that's going on inside of our bodies. And the fire element we talked about already, adrenaline and histamine, which histamine were associated with allergies. If we look again, bigger picture, what's the nature of these elements? The fire element is about our life's passion. And actually, let's start with Earth, because this is how we are developed too. First, we're born as humans, and our mom nurtures us. That allows for this validation of feeling okay or normal. And if we feel okay and normal, we decide that we're going to do some things in life. And as we make our first choices, we need reassurance. And so our parents are giving us a lot of these energies. That feeds into the wood element, which is our structure and boundary. So in life, if our parents say, okay, bedtime is here, dinner time is here, we can't put water on the floor, we can't paint on the walls, and everything is clear and held with good structure, then we develop a healthy wood element. And then fire is really, if we have all of these things, then we can express our desires and our passions. And our passions are, ultimately then what we gift to the rest of humanity. Here's the human needs put into that. We need something, we'll start down here at metal element. We need something called trust. That means we trust that the roof is going to stay up over our house. But if we have a really healthy metal element, we can trust even things that we don't prefer happening. Trust leads into connection. When we feel that we're safe, we can connect with other people. That's a human need. We have to have that kind of interaction. And once we have that community, we want to contribute to that community or that family. So even little kids want to be in contribution, and if you're having troubles getting them to do their chores, you might go backwards and look at, do we have these other elements satisfied? And then the fire element, human need, is significance. If we contribute, we feel important to that group, whether it's family or community, and through that we grow as humans. These are the triggers, the things that are upsetting for each of these elements. Earth is being ignoring, and our kids train us on this one. We'll call their names and then call their names again, and they ignore us, and sometimes it gets us upset. So being ignored, and obviously in the development process, if our nurturing needs are ignored, that weakens that earth element. Metal element is criticism. Now, nobody likes any of these things, but if that metal element is unhealthy, then criticism is really, really tough. And if the metal element is really healthy, we can easily take criticism and use it to better ourselves. Water is disruption, meaning we're going in one direction and something knocks us off. Some people have a very difficult time. Kids have a difficult time when things aren't going their way, and if we develop that healthy water element through reassurance and all the things that feed it and control it, then we can take disruption in life pretty well. The wood element is ignorance, which means people just don't know what you know, and it gets frustrating. Sometimes we call that stupid people. They just know different things than we know, and that can be really upsetting if we have lacked structure in our life. And then the fire element is unfairness as a trigger. So if we just take a patient example, and just to be within HIPAA rights, I'll use me. And we'll start down here at the metal element again, and I'll just, without getting into a lot of detail about my life, I'll just mention some of the highlights. So my father was not a big part of our family, and so we get a weakening of the metal element. Validation has a lot to do with the dad energy, whether dad is the only person doing that or not, but in the philosophy it has a lot to do with the dad energy. That controls the wood element, and with lacking control, we have overinflammation or overstress in that system. If you remember, autoimmune was the inflammatory response when this element lacks control and gets out of control. And then if this is super strong, we have a lot of energy here, it's going to over-control the earth element, which spleen is part of that. And if you know my history at all, you know that at age 1 I had an autoimmune disease called thrombocytopenia, which is where your platelets get destroyed by your immune system and you bleed and bruise and things like that. The end result of that in my case was the removal of my spleen, because it had just been suppressed. It wasn't working. Now, if medicine would apply this philosophy, they might look at, okay, well, what's going on in the wood element? Do we need to work with the immune system more and get that under control? And maybe I'd still have a spleen, but then I wouldn't be who I am. So trusting it all worked out just as it's supposed to. So wood being too loud now is going to accelerate the fire element. And we also have what I call strategies. So with the absent father and the overpowering wood element, we develop strategies in life. And one of my strategies was to be a clown. If I could make everybody laugh, then people would like me. But I also fed my passion, and early on I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was reading fitness magazines, I was reading about nutrition and body chemistry, even when I was in grade 9. In my spare time, I followed my passion very clearly. I also got the histamine effect. I had lots of allergy, and I got the adrenaline fix. Anxiety, the effects of adrenaline. I also got the strategy called the rebel, because of the over-control of the earth element. And that's probably a good thing too. I wouldn't be what I am. I question a lot, and I do things very differently. And so my whole life is a rebellion from what is. Now, I could just turn everybody off if I let that rebel element be out of control, just called people stupid all the time, and you don't get what you're such an idiot, you don't understand what I'm saying. But if I apply the rebel energy in a more productive fashion, it has furthered my education, and I enjoy some really neat things from that, and how I can help my family's health and help patients in general. I've had some great experiences because of that rebel energy turned into a positive. I also, because of the suppressing of that earth element, I was a bit of a mother seeker, and wanted to be nurtured, and I found my wife Sonia, who is like a super mom. And yeah, there was times where she did a little bit of mothering of me, and probably still does. But this whole pattern of energy flow really created who I am. And there's some things that I didn't enjoy, but I figured out how to control my immune system, so that it didn't control my earth element, my making energy. I learned to control my immune system so that I didn't have the allergy and anxiety issues as much, and kept the passion part of it. So I still get to express that passionate, different part of me, and use that to be significant and be contributing in society. And I got a heck of a lady out of it in my wife. So that's just a little kind of example of how we use the 5 elements. I think it's really fun and exciting. Whenever there's a problem in life, whenever I have a health problem that presents in front of me, I put it on this map so that I can see how it all plays together and where it all came from. And when I have a problem with my kids, I put it on here. Do we need to nurture more? Do we need to validate? Do we need to reassure? Do we need to create better structure? Do we need to let them express their desire a little bit more? So it just applies to everything. It gives us a guideline. It's a living energy flow, so there's no right or wrong about it. We just use it as a tool to help enrich our lives. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Thanks.